John, how you doing? It's Michael and Don.
I'm doing good, thanks, guys.
You know, a source of conversation, and I'm sure you've heard it as well, is with Matt Harvey on Sunday. And we played out the scenario that if the Mets lose the next two games and the Nationals win today and they win on Friday and Saturday, all of a sudden that Sunday game becomes really important. And we're going to play reindeer games with Matt Harvey being held to 4 or 5 innings. What's your take on this? Is this the right way to handle this?
Well, first and foremost, I think that the Mets got to be breathing so much easier, even though look, they're going to get in the playoffs. I don't think there's any way that the Nationals can run the table and the Mets stumble that much. And so what you're doing is you're trying to make sure that you've got enough bullets at the end for these guys. It is what it is. We knew going into the season that there was no way you were going to have the handcuffs off this young kid after coming back from Tommy John surgery. So you're dealing with the psychological issues right now. It is physical in the innings, but the psychological thing he's dealing with right now, mainly because of what his agent came out and said, mainly because of the atmosphere of what Mets fans have been waiting so long for. So you make it easier on him, and you just say, look, go pitch Sunday. In my opinion, go pitch Sunday. When we think you've had enough, we're going to take you out, and then we're not going to pitch you again until the National Series. And you may not have to pitch but 3 innings in that because it could be wrapped up. But go pitch you a good game on Sunday. Get ready for the Yankees. Give us your best, 6, 7 innings, whatever it is, and then let him deal and know that he's going to have rest to take care of what this has been an issue from the very beginning. So I would do that with most of the young starters right now because the young starters for the playoffs need as much psychological rest because the mental part and the mental fatigue, they've never been through this before. They've never had to deal with these kind of questions and deal with this kind of situation because they haven't been in the playoffs or a playoff situation.
John, there's a scenario, a negative one, that if, let's say, the Nationals win out until through Sunday and the Mets will play that game with a 4.5-game lead, having lost 4 in a row, and Harvey's pitching a gem through 5, maybe a no-hitter through 5, how difficult will it be to stick to the game plan and not want to see him go out there and continue to pitch?
Well, I don't think you can stick to the game plan. That's why I think it's got to be an adjustable on-the-fly scenario. I think if you have this worried view that they can't hold on to this 7.5-game lead, then what's the difference if they get in the playoffs and exhaust these guys to a point where, yeah, they got in, but what do they have left for the playoffs? I think you got to trust your team, trust your bullpen, and trust the fact that this team has put themselves in a great scenario. Because I'd flip it on you and I'd say, let's say they've got a 1-game lead right now, then they're not missing any starts. So if they're not missing any starts, they get to the end, what do they have left? So it's the chicken and the egg. In this scenario, that's why baseball suffers from the inability to prepare these guys in the minor leagues when you're young and you're rushing guys in. Take Harvey out of the scenario. He's a Tommy John recipient. He's going to have those case studies all there before him. We know what happens in the past. So he's out of the loop. But it's the other guys, the Syndergaards, Matts, the DeGrom has not had this kind of innings before where it's been the pressure of getting ready for the playoffs. In and of itself, they're in a great scenario. 7.5-game lead is a lot, and a lot has to go wrong for that to be absolutely to the point where the last weekend becomes a must-sweep for the Nationals.
John, so many people say that because of the young pitchers that the Mets have had this great year, and that's probably why. But you've also presented in your first couple of answers here that it could turn out to be a disadvantage when they get to the playoffs because they've never been there and done that. Are the Mets going to be starry-eyed, and will they be overwhelmed when they do get into the playoffs because these kids have never been there?
Well, if you can eliminate the fans for a second and the emotion, they're way ahead of the curve. This was a plan for next year.
Right.
I mean, when you look at the beginning of the year, the Nationals should have ran away with it. But the Mets were developing a guy from Tommy John recovery, and Harvey is going to be their stud. They're developing a Syndergaard, bringing him up. They're going to develop a Matts. They got DeGrom in the situation where he's developing into a great, not good, but great pitcher. So this was all going to be easy. These guys were going to be shut down. Right about now, they're going to be shut down. No one would have blinked an eye. But because they were in position and because they went out and made the moves, they're a different team. Now they have to figure out how do we get there, and which they're going to get there, what do we do when we get to the playoffs? So that's the scenario when you have, I said this 3 months ago, I said people don't understand when you're not in a position to run the table as a staff and you're worried about innings and pitches, you're going to have a hard time running through the playoffs. I have not. You look at the Oakland A's of the past. They did the most with the least, but they couldn't win a series because at times they had to stagger their staff and shut those guys down. That's why when nobody pitches 200 innings anymore, I just marvel at what people think the analytic baseball world is going to turn into. You can't have a 25-man pitching staff. So these are the kind of reasons when you have established starters and you have the guys in L.A., the Grinkies and the Kershaws and even the Andersons, they're not under any of these scenarios, and they're great pitchers. That's why the Mets are ahead of the curve, and it's exciting. I'm happy for them. I'm happy for the Mets fans because they've waited a long time, but I don't think they understand the pressure on this organization to make certain decisions.